Welcome back, guys. Today we have a famous story on the Hinterkaifeck murders, a truly chilling tale, so enjoy. The wind howled through the barren fields surrounding the small farmstead of Hinterkaifeck, a remote plot of land nestled in the Bavarian countryside. It was March 31st, 1922, and the air carried a bite that seemed to linger longer than usual for the time of year. The Gruber family, Andreas, 63, his wife Kazilia, 72, their widowed daughter Victoria, 35, and her two children, little Kazilia, 7, and Josef, 2, lived in quiet isolation, their nearest neighbors a kilometer away through dense woods. The farm was modest, its weathered wooden walls standing firm against the elements, but there was something unsettling in the stillness that night, something none of them could name. Andreas Gruber was a gruff man, not well liked by the locals. Rumors swirled about his temper and the strange dynamics within his family, whispers of secrets too dark to speak aloud. Victoria, his daughter, was a devout woman who sang in the church choir, yet her life bore the weight of unspoken shame. Her husband had died in the Great War, or so she claimed, but little Josef's father was a mystery, and the villagers muttered about incestuous ties with Andreas himself. The family kept to themselves, and that isolation bred both curiosity and disdain. That evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, Andreas stepped outside to check the livestock. The sky was a bruised purple, and the shadows stretched long across the frost-bitten ground. He paused by the barn, his breath visible in the chill, and frowned. Something caught his eye near the edge of the woods, a set of footprints in the snow leading from the trees toward the farm. They were fresh, deliberate, and stopped abruptly at the barn door. No tracks led away. He squinted into the darkening forest, but saw nothing. Unease gnawed at him, though he brushed it off as the paranoia of an old man. He returned inside, locking the door behind him, and told Kazilia about the prints. She dismissed it with a wave of her hand. "Probably a hunter," she muttered, though her eyes lingered on the window. The next morning, the maid arrived. Maria Baumgartner, 44, was new to the household, hired just that day after the previous maid had fled 6 months earlier, claiming the farm was haunted. She'd spoken of footsteps in the attic at night, creaking boards when no one was there, and a suffocating sense of being watched. Andreas had called her superstitious and sent her packing, but Maria's arrival brought a flicker of normalcy. She was a sturdy woman, practical, and she set to work without complaint, tending to the kitchen while the family went about their chores. But the day felt wrong. Little Kazilia, usually bright and talkative, was subdued. She tugged at Victoria's skirt and whispered that she'd heard something in the night, soft thumps above her room, like someone pacing. Victoria hushed her, blaming the wind, but her own hands trembled as she kneaded dough. Andreas, too, was on edge. He'd found the morning newspaper at the doorstep, though no postman had come by, and the footprints he'd seen the night before were gone, erased by a light dusting of snow or something else. As dusk fell, the family gathered for supper. Maria served a simple meal of bread and stew, her presence a quiet comfort. The wind rattled the windows, and the fire in the hearth cast flickering shadows on the walls. Then came a sound, a sharp, metallic clank from outside near the barn. Andreas stood, his chair scraping the floor. "I'll check it," he growled, grabbing his coat. Victoria protested, but he waved her off and stepped into the night. Minutes passed. The family sat in silence, listening. The wind carried no answers, only an eerie whine. Kazilia, the elder, rose to peer out the window, her wrinkled face taut with worry. "He's taking too long," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. Victoria joined her, clutching Joseph to her chest. The yard was dark, the barn a looming silhouette. Then, a scream. A short, guttural cry cut off as quickly as it began. It was Andreas. Panic seized them. Victoria bolted for the door, but Kazilia grabbed her arm. "Stay with the children," she hissed, and hobbled outside herself, leaning on a cane. The cold swallowed her as she crossed the yard, calling her husband's name. Her voice echoed, unanswered. Inside, little Kazilia began to cry, and Maria, pale as death, clutched a rosary she'd pulled from her apron. Victoria rocked Joseph, murmuring prayers, her eyes darting to the windows. Kazilia didn't return. The silence grew heavier, pressing against the walls. Victoria set Joseph down and grabbed a kitchen knife, her breath shallow. "Maria, watch them," she ordered, and stepped into the night. The air was frigid, the darkness absolute. She stumbled toward the barn, the knife trembling in her grip. "Father? Mother?" she called, her voice breaking. Then she saw it, a shape on the ground near the woodpile. It was Andreas, his head split open, blood pooling black in the snow. A mattock, the heavy farming tool, lay beside him, its blade slick with gore. She screamed, staggering back, and turned to run, only to collide with a figure emerging from the shadows. It was Kazilia, her face a mask of terror, her skull caved in on one side. She crumpled at Victoria's feet, dead before she hit the ground. Victoria whirled, heart pounding, and saw nothing but darkness. The barn loomed ahead, its door ajar. Against every instinct, she stepped inside, driven by a desperate need to understand. The air stank of hay and blood. In the dim light, she saw them, piles of bodies, stacked like cordwood. Andreas and Kazilia weren't the first. The killer had lured them here, one by one. Before she could scream again, a shadow moved behind her, and the mattock swung. Her last thought was of her children. Back in the house, Maria huddled with little Kazilia and Joseph, whispering assurances she didn't believe. The door burst open, and a figure stepped inside, tall, silent, cloaked in shadow. Kazilia shrieked, and Maria lunged to shield her, but the mattock fell swiftly. The maid collapsed, her blood staining the floor. Little Kazilia tried to run, but a hand grabbed her hair, yanking her back. Her cries ended with a sickening crunch. Joseph, too young to flee, met the same fate, his tiny body left sprawled beside his sister. For days, the farm stood silent. Neighbors noticed smoke rising from the chimney, bread baking in the oven, meat missing from the larder. Someone was living there, among the dead. On April 4th, a search party arrived, drawn by the family's absence from church. They found the bodies, Andreas, Kazilia, Victoria, and little Kazilia in the barn, Maria and Joseph in the house. The killer had stayed, eaten, slept, then vanished into the woods. The Hinterkaifeck murders remain unsolved. Footsteps in the attic, a key gone missing days before, a stranger seen lurking nearby, all clues that led nowhere. The farm was demolished, but the horror lingers. A whisper in the wind, a shadow in the trees, a question without an answer.